Hi, this is Dr. Mark Sehl from the YouTube channel Therapy for the Heart. So I was talking about defenses and the strongest and the weakest. So how can we work around our defenses and get to know ourselves better so that we can be more authentic as we talk about in the podcasts and the videos, YouTube videos? So what gets in our way? I guess primarily we could pay attention to what our defenses are and learn whether they're in our service or not, like repression. So if you make a slip of the tongue and you call somebody by the wrong name, what you can do is investigate what it is about this person that you may have had some argument with or resentment toward. That's after you make the slip. I mean, but we don't want to go on making slips without understanding them if we can. And of course, everything is unconscious, so how do you access the unconscious? Well, you can do it by free associating to that slip. Not in the moment, you don't have time, but perhaps later on you can lie down on the couch and free associate. Just say what's ever in your mind about that friend and what comes to your mind, as if you were in the therapy session. Being on the couch in the prone position does give you more access to, it's the least defended position. The highest defended position is standing up, and then the next is sitting, and then the next is being prone. You're more vulnerable, but why not? Do you have something against being vulnerable, by the way? Probably. Everybody does, but fight it and go with the flow and see what comes to your mind. Same thing with denial. If you're in a situation and you're thinking about your kids screaming, what are they screaming about? Are they screaming about you drinking too much and how you behave when you're drinking and how your behavior affects them and their life and their schoolmates and what they may say to your kids in school about your behavior? Or do you just pass your behavior by and their objections because you don't want to hear about it? So if you don't want to hear about their objections, they're going to come back to bite you. That's for sure. One of the best things we can do is to see how our children are reacting to us and our behavior, and then to ask them, how is my behavior affecting you? If you're honest about the question, you'll hear an honest answer. If they think you're just being ingenuine, then you won't. And that alcohol is terrible. Drugs is in a family is you know, they're going to feel ashamed and of themselves and you, because you become a reflection of them. And if you're misbehaving, then they think, oh, what's wrong with me that my parents are acting this way? Maybe I didn't do something right. So you can take that behavior that you're observing in the family of where there's a drinking or drugging problem and observe it. You don't have to walk away and say, maybe you have to, but you might not have to walk away and not pay attention to what's happening around you, because what's happening around you is going to come back at you. And you might as well save some years of your children's life and your own about being able to enjoy it, rather than defending yourself against the idea that, you know, you have a drinking problem. Oh, I'm an alcoholic. What's so terrible about that? It's just a label. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't define you. It defines something that you do, which is drinking. Who you are is what you want to make yourself be in life. And that, I think, would be somewhere deep and down, you want to be able to conquer this problem of drugging and alcohol. I hope you are. So, and you want to save your children too. You want to save your children from their bad feelings about themselves, and help them to be angry and listen to what they have to say about your behavior. To it. Try it. You've done the other, right? You ignored your problems. You've said you don't have a problem. denial is pervasive. Well, it's a hard thing. You know, I ask patients sometimes, how big is your denial? Is it this big? If thinks about bricks, think about bricks. Is it this? Is the wall this wide, this wide, this wide, this wide, this wide? Well, if it's that wide, you got work to do. Okay, so you have work to do. Life is not easy. It's a good exercise because making that image, people get some idea of how big it is inside them, and perhaps they will get a little frightened or anxious and do something about it. A lot of defenses we have, like projection. You often find yourself in a relationship, and there might be silence in the room, and perhaps whatever happens, maybe that you had an argument or something like that. So you could say to your partner, are you angry at me? So if you're used to doing that, projecting your feelings onto somebody else, you can correct it. You can notice it once you've heard this video. If you continue to do that same thing, ask a question of the other person rather than saying how you feel at the moment. You can catch yourself at that, and instead of saying, are you angry at me, you can say something like, I just had this idea that perhaps you're angry at me and I wanted to check it out. Now, isn't that different? That's a big difference. Yeah, because you're owning your feelings. You're not saying how you feel, but you feel uncomfortable. Or you feel uncomfortable, and I had this idea that you're angry at me, and I don't like that idea. I mean, for some reason, it gets me nervous about when you're angry at me. So maybe we could talk about that right now. See, projection just ascribes the feeling to somebody else. It doesn't really help you. Only in the short run to avert your feelings and not deal with them, not confront yourself with your feelings. So that's one you can do. These things you're not going to accomplish overnight. We've been training ourselves to be defensive about things in life, all our life, in one way or the other. So defenses are important. That's why therapists used to confront them. It was a terrible thing. You know, confront them. Confrontation is not good. It just puts people on a defensive. And oh, you're quiet because you're angry at me. They could be talk to the patient that way. You're quiet. You know, even saying you're quiet it feels like an attack anyway to a patient. That's just the way they are. That's the way they are in the world. They've been taught to be quiet, and if they speak, they're afraid that they'll get reprimanded or scolded. There's so many incidences where people have the experience of being reprimanded about who they are, how they feel. To hell with that, you know. You want to work on that so that you don't reprimand yourself. So you can have a conversation with the person in the room and say, gee, I had this strange idea that you are angry with me. Does that seem strange to say that to you? I bet you it does, because you were not used to doing that. Owning our own feelings, starting with your own discomfort, starting with your own uncomfortability rather than project it into the situation. And then when it gets to be are you angry with me? No, you're angry with me. And then you can get to a tit for tat about, well, you do this and you do that and you do this and you do that. It goes nowhere, right, with arguments. Do you have arguments like that? They're very familiar with people. You do this, well, you do that. They're trying to blame the other and to get out guilt-free. We have a lot of guilt. So if you say something and you admit to something, to somebody, somebody cares about you, or somebody that you care about, and you're very close, people do not want to admit to a fault, because then they take a brush, and it's like they brush it all over their whole character and they're bad. So they don't like admitting it, because they've been scorned so much and criticized so much. That's in them. So it's not in them to take a remark and just consider it as an observation about them to think about, which is what you need. If your partner says something about you that it feels critical, instead of absorbing it and then attacking back, well, you didn't do the laundry last night. Well, you didn't do the dishes. You leave them all in the sink all the time you come home. I've been working all day, and all I could do is get this dirty house. and unclean things and dust all over the place. And I've been working hard all day, as if your partner hasn't been doing anything. That's an attack. You don't want to say that. I was working with somebody, and that's what he said. He was every time he would come home, and he would just attack his wife for not doing her duty. What about his duty? What about his duty coming home and saying to his partner, gee, you know, it's nice to see you, or go wash the dishes yourself, right? Take responsibility. Don't attack her, or if it's a her, don't attack him. All you do is lay around at night and just watch TV. That's focusing on all you do. What about what's going on in you? You know, when I come home and I'm looking forward to seeing you, and I see you watching TV, I wish you would spend some time with me. I miss you. I miss your company. This happens every night. You're just gazing at the TV. And if you gaze too long in life, I won't be here. Because all you'll be looking at is images on the TV or games on the TV. But what about me? I like you. I love you. I want to work this out. I don't want to have to get divorced, but I will if you keep it up and you don't really tell me you'd like to go to couple counseling and work this out. It can be. Other people do it. But people don't want to be vulnerable. It's like we talked in the videos about sex, and if there's a difficulty in sex and one person is not being satisfied, they'll often have an argument about something else rather than that. Like, you know, I would like to have sex with you tonight, or take that person out and for a romantic dinner, instead of, if you can't say it out like that, maybe it seems crude, I'd love to make love to you tonight. We haven't been doing that in a long time. We haven't done that. We haven't gone out, and I miss that. See, it's the saying I miss it often, it puts you in a vulnerable spot. But if you don't say I miss that, the other person doesn't get the feeling that you miss them. So here, two people, neither one wants to be vulnerable. Well, it's a dead-end street. So you need to be able to be vulnerable and say, I miss something, I miss your company, I miss us going out together, I miss us joining hands and walking down the street. Often it happens right often when people have children, you know, all of a sudden there's a different kind of conflict between them that they haven't experienced before. That's once the child enters. So you need to be prepared to really devote your time to both of you in spending time with each other, because often one or the other party's going to feel ignored and out of place and not fitting in often, because so much attention is paid to the baby. Of course, you need to pay a lot of attention to the baby, but don't neglect your partner. And don't have resentment about you're not getting paid attention and then cover it up. That would be then covering it up by not spending time, not helping out with the baby. A lot of men help out with the baby. They do. They don't just leave it all to the women, but sometimes they don't. They don't realize what an overwhelming job it is to. Sometimes she's working, sometimes not, but she still has the major caretaking function of the child. Often, with most families anyway, is given to her, and her workload is not appreciated. And sometimes she doesn't even appreciate it. Or he doesn't, if he could be the father he's a stay-home mom. He needs to be appreciated. The wanting to be appreciated is such a strong urge and desire for everybody to want to be appreciated. They want to be appreciated for what they do and who they are. And so these defenses that we have are not, you have to pay attention to them and see how your behavior, look at it, observe it, and sometimes you just can't do it in the moment. At the moment, if you can, that's good. You know, your wife says something to you like, what are you going to do? Watch the TV again tonight? What are you going to do? Watch the TV again tonight? See, she's registering a complaint, but through a criticism. That doesn't welcome you to talk to her. So if she says something like, you know, Jim, you know, you've been watching a lot of TV. I know you want to escape and get away from life's turmoils and problems, and maybe just get away from work. But I also feel missed when you don't talk with me. I know men don't tend to make conversation as much as women, but I'd like you to give it a try because I want to talk to you. That's why we got married. That's why we decided to be together, because we enjoyed each other's company. We haven't been doing that for a long time, and I miss you. You being in the TV is, I don't mean to criticize you. Well, in some way I do, but it gets me angry.